Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to the Church of Doom. My name is Landon Father Doom Gus. Wow, I tripped over my own name. And we are gathered here today to get a recap from a very, very awesome session of D&D. We're going to go through a quick kind of summary of the events. I'm going to tell you why I think the session went so well, what I loved about it. And if you are one of my players, which I see I've got Marc and Hidden in the chat, you are my players. When we get to certain points, there will be spoilers. So you might not want to listen in, which means I'm going to lose one of my 5 viewers. But hey, I'm okay with that. But we're going to go through that. Then, once we get through all that, we'll do a little Q&A. I'll answer any questions you guys got. I'll hang out with folks who are in the chat. And then we're going to brainstorm some mage-themed trap ideas, because this month on the Patreon, our zine theme is The Mage's Dungeon. Last month we did the Wretched Tropics. Oh, let me make myself a little bigger here. We did the Wretched Tropics, right? We did our micro-setting RPG zine with background about the world or the official Heavenly Urchin campaign setting from the Church of Doom, as well as then the Wretched Tropics itself. We prepped a 12 hex map, and we did a write-up on all of the locations. I did custom art for all of those locations. So this is the finished product. It is available as a PDF on Patreon right now. Underneath this big stack of books, I've got about 3 zines that are getting compressed, just get it laying nice and flat, that I'm going to ship out to some of my higher tier patrons. But as a quick announcement here at the beginning, if you are interested in getting your hand on something like this, you want a DIY crafted handmade zine with a whole little setting inside of it, then I am excited to announce that the Wretched Tropics is coming to Kickstarter next month. The pre-launch page is up. It is live. I've got it pinned in the chat. I've got it in the description. So you can go follow the page to get notified as soon as the project goes live, so you can snag one of the discounted early tiers, and you can read a little bit about the project right here. But I am super, super thrilled. Even if you do not plan on backing the project, I would super appreciate it if you are a loyal cultist of the Church of Doom. If you want to support the RPG hobby and pay your hobby tithing, go follow that page, because it will notify me how many people are following it once we hit 10. And the bigger the number, the more Kickstarter will like me, and will hopefully plug the project when it goes live. So that's one of the announcements I wanted to share with y'all. Another announcement. What else do I got? We're gathered here today to talk about the Wretched Tropics pre-launch. We've got the Patreon ritual. Right. I just wanted to quickly plug as well that if you aren't following the Patreon, which you can do for free, you're out of your freaking mind, because almost every weekday I post the morning ritual hobby blog. Sometimes it's got a summary of last night's session. Sometimes it's got most of the time it has a random table like this one, 1d10 mage themed dungeons, which has some of the sickest art I think I've ever made. How close can I? Oh, I wish I could zoom in even closer. But this, I called it, I did a little sneak peek of this on my Instagram story. I called him the, what did I call him? What the hell? It was such a cool name. Gestatus, the gestating magus, or magus, sort of an idea of this is a wizard who has a bunch of cloning machines all around him. He's gestating, he's creating new life in these artificial fetuses. It's very, very grimdarky and cool. Some awesome art. I was happy with that. But you get a whole D10 list of ideas you can read. If you are a tithe-giving patron, you can download that PDF in the Doomnomicon. And then also, I did a little spoiler alert for my players. I also put down a screenshot of my session notes, which I've started to do physical again. I don't know why I transitioned over to doing digital notes again. Doing them physically, which I've got it right here too, with the highlighter and my pen, it was so fun. And during the session, I was making those little notes and things and little doodles and drawings, which was really fun. So absolutely go be following the Patreon so you can read about all this cool stuff. And that's it for the announcements. Let's get into the actual topic today, right? We are gathered here today to go through an awesome session of the Wretched Tropics, the Martyrs of the Wretched Tropics, which has 2 open seats. Well, actually 1, because a player is going to be joining this week. But if you want to get in on the action, you certainly can. So, here's what went down. If you have been tuning into these streams, following along, then you already probably know that my players, which are only level 3, this group of level 3 characters, were aboard a ship that was coming to the Wretched Tropics to resettle an old abandoned village, because at one point in time the Wretched Tropics had some semblance of human civilization here, but it was lost during the Great Pilgrimage. So they traveled across the Dead Sea for months and months and months, and when they got here, the characters weren't necessarily like martyrs yet. They weren't heroes who were going to help go do crazy things. They were sort of just coming here for their own reasons. So the guards got sent ahead to sort of clear the beach. They never came back. The players were then the characters were approached and sent to investigate, see what had happened. And they found out that the guards had been captured by a tribe of Koatoa that were living in the same town that the people were coming to resettle in, and were preparing the guards as some sort of offering. And the characters discovered when they failed to stop the ritual in time with a D4 timer that was ticking down. When that timer hit 0, the King in Black, this Aboleth who excretes this sort of black mucousy membrane all around him and just makes everything rancid, emerged from the waters, kind of dragged himself up onto shore to collect these offerings, these mortal consciousness, these brains that he could enslave. And he discovered the characters there, and they were like, oh, fuck, do we run? What do we do? Is he going to kill us? And I was like, no, the Aboleth isn't going to just like outright kill you. I'm not going to TPK you with a crazy monster right at the start. That would be really lame. And so the Aboleth, the King in Black, saw value in the skill set that these mortals possess, right? He's used to just having these dumb Koatoa serving him, but now he's like, oh, I've got a group of very skilled people. So he said, I demand an offering. You need to bring me an offering within 5 days. And if you don't, all of the lives on the ship you came here with are forfeit. So in a way, I sort of put my players in an impossible situation, which I feel like you could maybe make the argument like, I was railroading, like I didn't give them a choice. They had a choice, right? They could have just said no. They could have decided to fight, but they agreed. As the party, they're like, all right, we'll go find you an offering. So the next morning, they spoke to the Koatoa and learned that to the north, a few days up the beach, there was a shipwreck up on the cliffs. And that's sort of where our session picked up last night. They had cleared out the ship of some pterodactyl monsters and had found a key to a treasure chest. And we're excited at the beginning of the night to find out what is in that chest. What were they going to either get for themselves, and what were they going to give to the King in Black? And how I do my loot, basically, when I prep, I do not prep the treasure. I do not prep the magic items, except in very rare situations when I'm like, I need this one specific thing. But most of the time, I'm rolling on random tables. Either it be from the DMG, or from Shadow Dark, or in the case of last night, Index Card RPG. I busted out Old Reliable, one of my favorite books. Oh no, it's missing one of its corner guards. Dang, if you look, I ordered on Amazon, cool little book corner guards. Anyways, I rolled on his sci-fi loot table because my world is a science fantasy setting, and the ship that the characters were looting was actually an ancient void ship or a sky ship, right? And so the party rolled 2d100s. The first one they rolled was was a 48, which was hack. And the description is, it's an int spell or intelligence spell. Make any computer system for 2, or enter any computer system for 2 rounds. You gain +5 to your intelligence and a couple other things that are specific to Index Card, right? So they got this already super cool item. And how I described it was, I almost took a little inspiration from sort of Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and where they started to introduce some weird sort of sci-fi elements, but it was this little shard of mithril that had 5 golden prongs coming off of the end of it, and a strange glyph on top of the piece of mithril that almost looked, I described it in meta terms as like, it kind of looks like a circuit board. It's very strange, but it has arcane glyphs to it. So that item they could use to plug into any sort of ancient piece of technological magic, and boom, they'd put their consciousness in it and they could pull secrets out of it. Really, really cool item. Just a fun description for you. But that wasn't the item they got that really like totally set the stage for the whole session. The item they got that did that was 80, what was it? It was a 90, oh wait, where was it? It was a 80, oh my god, of course now I'm all of a sudden unable to find it. Where the hell did it go? I can't find it on this list, but I remember what it was. It was basically a time door. Maybe it was on not the sci-fi loot table. Hold on, give me a second. 88. Where the hell is it? Ah, here it is. It's on the epic loot table. Okay. It was 88, the time doorway. It's access any item or access any time at current location. And I said it was a one-use item. I described it as this little rectangle of ancient metal with these little urchins at the corners and this sort of yellow temporal doorway in the middle part. And when they recited the prayer, they learned, when they spoke to one of the wizards that had came with the party on the boat with all the pilgrims, they identified the item and said, if you recite the prayer that is etched into the edge of this doorway, it will create a portal. It will grow in size. And yeah, you can step into wherever you're standing, any point in the past. It's totally up to you. And almost immediately, my players started hatching a scheme. They're like, oh, I wonder if we could send the Aboleth through this. I wonder if we could get the King in Black to get stuck back in time, which then led to a bunch of very fun conversations about, well, what would be the butterfly effects of that? What could we do to the timeline? Like, if we send him back 400 plus years before the Great Pilgrimage has even happened, before the gods have abandoned this world, like, is he going to become a new god? Is he going to become more powerful? Will he go through and immediately just get killed because technology and magic is way more powerful back then? They were really uncertain. We were having a lot of fun just playing out these hypothetical scenarios of like, the Aboleth gets stuck through the doorway, you close it, and then everything changes around you, and that was really funny. But eventually the characters decided, like, yeah, let's fucking do this thing. Like, I don't want to give the Aboleth an offering. I don't want to be a servant of this Xenos monster. I'm a faithful servant of Vecna. We're here to settle a town for him. So we need to take this dude out. And so the players, with that plan in mind, had Nibs, who is the party's artificer gnome. He boarded the ship, the airship that they had gotten, which is called the Icarus. And he was kind of hanging up in the clouds, in the mists of the wretched tropics. In case things went south, he was basically going to fly the ship down and smash it into the Aboleth to try and kill him. But while the rest of the party went ashore. And when they began rowing their boat to the shore, I described that the Koatoa had set all of these pikes with human skulls, kind of funneling the characters up to the beach. There were torches burning within the skulls, and the Koatoa were doing their ridiculous fishman chant or whatever, their ritual. The players arrived, and the Koatoa basically said, he will be here soon. Prepare yourself. Prepare the offering. So the party's cleric, who is Akuji, this really cool sort of wolf-looking Egyptian automaton kind of inspired character, he set the doorway down into the sand, while the other two characters kind of tucked away to the sides in case they needed to jump out or help, and the King in Black appeared. I described this mucusy wave of black water kind of splashing onto the shore, and then because it's mucusy, it kind of clung to the sand. It was slow to make its way back out, and then another came, and then another came, and then the seas parted ever so slightly, and the guards that the players previously had thought had been eaten by the Aboleth, because when he came ashore in a previous session, he kind of snatched them up and stuffed them up inside of him, and the players were like, oh my god, no, he killed Hoff, which was like the captain of the guard. Well, now they learned, he's actually mind enslaved the guard. So not only do we have all these Koatoa, there were way more than just the two and the leader, but they had this tribe of Koatoa behind them. They had 3 guards coming up out of the water, and then the King in Black made his way up onto the surface and just began to do what an evil Aboleth would do. Yes, I see you've brought me my offering. Show me what it is. And at one thing he said, he's like, I see that there are only 3 when I recall 4. Tell me, what terrible fate befell the little one? And it was really funny actually in the session, because the Aboleth is telepathic, so he would be speaking to the characters in their mind, and then if they said something that made him laugh, he would laugh in their heads, but the guards and the Koatoa, they would all ha ha ha, like laugh out loud. So I described this really unsettling scene where the beach is just dead silent, and then there would be this cacophony of laughter. But anyways, the players kind of gave him a little fib, like, oh yeah, he got eaten by a plant, it was terrible, but we have prepared an offering for you. And that is when Kuji began to recite the prayer of this doorway, and it grew in size. It was large enough that the King in Black could kind of fit his way through it, especially being a slimy amphibious alien. But Akuji took a big risk. He stepped through the doorway, and he rolled a d4 before he did this, and that was how many rounds the door would stay open. I think he got a 3. So they had 3 rounds to convince the King in Black to step through this doorway and trap him there. And Akuji was on the other side of it. So he steps through, and I described that the town that they were sent here to resettle, well, now it is in a more glorious state. It's still the wretched tropics. Even 400 years ago, the Facepalker, the Black Dragon, was still here. So there was still this sulfuric mist and fog that was surrounding the island. It still wasn't a pleasant place, but the town was inhabited, and the people had baskets of fruits and pelts, and they looked like true, like enlightened citizens of a more technological age. And then they just started screaming and freaking out because this portal opened and a weird wolf robot walked through, and then he was shortly followed by the King in Black, who the first check to get him to come through, it was honestly pretty easy. He was just blown away at this technology. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, and so his curiosity got a little bit at the best of him, and he started to pull himself up onto the shore a bit, his tentacles trailing behind him and his eyes kind of poked through the doorway. And then it started to come down to persuasion checks. And Akuji, thankfully, through inspiration and guidance and a couple of different things, was able to keep coaxing him in, saying things like, you know, imagine how many souls there are in this timeline for you to enslave. This is not the same world that it was when you arrived here, right? It's different. And the Aboleth totally fell for it. The King in Black just, yes, good. I will build a true kingdom. I will be your god. And Akuji then kind of started to shift his way back towards the doorway, kind of like, oh, fuck, how am I going to get back through there? Because the tentacles from the King in Black were still kind of trailing back through the doorway. So I was conveying to the player, like, if you're going to try and dive through there, there's a chance that the tentacles are going to wrap you up and he might pull you in with you. And it was coming down to like the last round that the doorway was going to be open. It was really, really cool. There was no combat, but I was looking at all the players' faces and they were like so leaned in, edge of their seat, like just waiting to see what would happen. And this is when the party's sorceress, the Ray, the drow, totally came in clutch. I can't remember the spell she used, but it was basically something that would allow her to shunt another character who they could choose to fail a save. She could target an enemy and teleport them. And she almost thought about, like, do I teleport the Aboleth and put him even deeper into the area? But then I reminded him, like, you guys know he has legendary resistances, because he had used that in their first encounter with him. She's like, okay, yeah. Well, then I'm going to target Akuji, who volunteered to fail his save, and she blinks him through the doorway. And then I had the player roll a save, a dex save for the Aboleth. I said, he's smart enough, he's ancient enough, he's powerful enough to have an opportunity to try and pull himself back through the doorway. And it's going to come down to a single dex save. I'm going to put the DC at 16. He has a +3 to his dex. Give me a roll. And I had Akuji, the cleric, who had really put his life on the line, roll it. I believe he rolled an 11 +3 for a total of 14, which meant the King in Black failed. This is where we're going to get into a little bit of a spoiler here. So Marc and Hidden and anybody else who is part of this campaign, if you're here listening, plug your ears, mute the stream, don't listen. But I described that the Aboleth was trying to squeeze his way back through the doorway, bellowing, no, trying to force it open as it closed. And I described that it started to kind of squish into this creature, and it severed 2 of his tentacles that flopped down onto the beach. And then he has 3 eyes. One of them got caught and pinched and popped out of his head and plopped onto the beach for the characters to collect after the fact. And then the doorway sealed, and the Aboleth, the King in Black, was gone. Thrown back in time 400 and something years in the exact same spot where the players are right now. And I don't think this is going to be too much of a surprise, honestly, to my players, given all the conversations they were having leading up to this occurring. But the King in Black is not dead. I mean, come on. He's an Aboleth, and they're level 3. And yes, they defeated him by trapping him in this doorway with this crazy item that only entered the story because we rolled on a random table, which was so cool. But I decided, okay, he gets sent back in time. He's got 400 and something years to sort of come up with a new plan. His whole character now is going to be about getting revenge on these martyrs who cursed him and threw him back in time. So at some point, somewhere in the Wretched Tropics, they're going to encounter him again. I am not sure where yet, but I'm thinking he's going to have, with these 450 years, he'll have uncovered some sort of underground lake somewhere within the Wretched Tropics, or maybe he'll even have found some way to get into the Heaven Steps, the ancient void ship port, or maybe some sort of ruin from Featherport or Feather Wharf. I'm not sure yet. All I know is that the King in Black will one day make his glorious return, and he will become a true BBG for the party to face off against in some crazy big battle, unless maybe they find another item that'll help them defeat him very quickly. But with the Aboleth defeated and his kind of telepathic control or proximity to his minions severed, the guards kind of just started retching up this black mucusy sort of stuff and came back to their senses. The Koatoa fled into the waters and just retreated immediately, their spirits broken, and the session ended with the players sort of welcoming the ship of pilgrims aboard, and all the characters got to pick their own hut, their own home, and sort of describe what they did with it to make it their own. And now they know, going into next week's session, the Father Lancelot, the man who is leading this mission and is responsible for the settling of this town, is going to want to throw the Feast of Wretched Pilgrims. So he's going to task the players with either going out and hunting some sort of beast for them to all eat, or helping to fortify the defenses to keep the town safe. So they'll have some interesting decisions to make next session. But it was awesome. It was so much fun, and I hope that you guys, if nothing else, if you don't get an idea from like, oh yeah, take your notes physically because it's so worth it, or hey, maybe consider rolling your loot randomly because you have no idea where it's going to take your story, or hey, maybe consider playing in the Wretched Tropics setting, right? If you take nothing else from this sermon, I at least hope you take my excitement. I hope that that's a bit contagious for you, where you're like, damn, this dude is really hyped about how last night's session went. I want to make my next session just as fun for my players. I want to be just as excited. So go, take that spirit, take that momentum, and run with it. Go prep an awesome session of D&D and let your players, even if they're low level, put them up against high level threats, because I think they'll surprise you. I think they'll be able to come up with a plan. They'll come up with some sort of scheme to beat their enemies. And we say these things in my martyrs' unholy names, amen, right? That is my sermon. That's what I wanted to share with you all today. So, with that said, let's shift into our Q&A. I want to hang out with the people who are in chat. What's going on? I've already said hi, Hidden and Marc in the chat. They're part of this campaign. I see Marc and Kyle and Doman and are all members of the church. Good to see you in chat. Noble Knight, what's up? G. Joel Moore, looking at the nice looking zine you got going on. Good job, Father Doom. Thank you, G. Joel Moore. Hey, you know what? I wouldn't have been able to do this without you guys, right? All of these ideas, everything in here, that's a lot of the credit is due to you guys. So I appreciate your help with that. Dr. Delirium, what is up? Long time no see. You asked, how are you, old friend? I'm great. How are you, old friend? I hope you're doing well. I'm psyched to see you in the chat. That's great. Hidden, what did you say? We said we decided we would mess with time. That's a setup for future troubles if I've ever seen one. Absolutely, dude. I was thrilled as soon as you guys pitched that idea, which I did not anticipate that at all. I mean, obviously we rolled the item randomly, but even when I rolled it and I was like, oh, it's a cool doorway that lets you like step through into a different period of time. That's cool. I didn't think that you could use it as a weapon. Whose idea was it, Hidden? Who kind of like pitched that in the group? It was so cool. And you guys are awesome. Like my Wednesday group, all my groups are fun, of course, but that Wednesday group, like you guys are such a tight role-playing group. Like there was probably a good chunk of like 30 minutes where you guys were just talking in character, and I just sat back and listened. And I think maybe at one point towards the end I was like, all right, let's come up with a plan, right? What are we gonna do? But you guys just are fantastic with just staying in character. I am truly blessed. Praise be Vecna, right? Who else though? Noble Knight, I saw you in there. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Rope Goat, good to see you. Noble Knight asked, here we go, here's a question, which by the way, that's what we're doing here, right? If you've got a question, and it could be about anything in the RPG scene, it doesn't have to be about what we just talked about, drop it in the chat. But Noble Knight asked, what's the thing you're most proud of coming up with in your setting? Ooh, so I'm guessing you mean the Wretched Tropics, which is in the setting of the Urchin. Now, an Urchin is an acronym, you'll obviously see there, and it stands for Uninhabitable Realm, Corrupted by Hell's Infernal Nature. And that's because the Heavenly Urchin is a realm where the hubris of its mortal ascended gods led to the demonic corruption of the sun some 1d4 human ages ago, irreversibly transforming it into a portal to hell that the world is slowly but surely falling into. That's like the world. That is why the sky is this apocalyptic pink and yellow color. That's why everything is black and white, because the sun is sort of dead, but it's not a black hole. It's some sort of infernal hole, and it's just casting a strange light over everything. That is honestly probably like one of my favorite just things in general of the whole setting. It ties everything I've been working on artistically, world building wise, like everything. It ties it together finally. This idea that it was corrupted by demons and became a portal to hell, I did not have that idea until the day before I published this zine. It was the last thing I added, where I was like, man, I really need to come up with a reason for why the sun is the way that it is. What is the doomsday scenario of this world? And it finally popped into my head. I love Doom. I in my Martyrs of the Ark campaigns, which is on the giant cathedral-sized planet on the Ark itself that saved half of humanity, I'll play the Doom soundtrack. So I knew I wanted something sort of hardcore and intense, and that's where we sort of settled. So that's my favorite idea of like the whole world. But if it was the Wretched Tropics, what's my favorite idea? It's got to be Facepalker, the ancient black dragon who resides in the Pocked Mountain, this giant ancient volcano that no longer erupts with lava, but rather like dribbles sulfuric rivers. And people believe it is the drool from Facepalker himself that melts this volcano. And there's so much sulfur spilling out of this volcano, and it's so acidic from the dragon that the volcano is constantly crumbling and falling apart, and huge sections are sloughing off. But then eventually, like, sulfuric lava will keep bubbling up to remake the volcano. So if I just go back to it real quick, actually, you can definitely see in the art, like, it's meant to look pockmarked. Like, it's just this mass of sulfuric rock that just keeps building up and then falling apart and building up and falling apart. So I love the volcano, and I love Facepalker. The name is just too cool. The idea of a black dragon whose victims just have these faces who are riddled with acid scars, these big holes that are burned into it, and that's how you know you've been a victim of Facepalker. It's so cool. So good question, Noble Knight. Thanks for asking. Hidden said, not sure who first shot... Oh, this is going back to the King in Black scheme to take him out. He said, not sure who first shot the idea out, but it was not me. Maybe Marc can remember better. Maybe it was Marc. Might have been Marc. But he said, we're the blessed ones. Thanks for the work. So excited for every Wednesday as of late. I appreciate that, dude. And Hidden, he is in... you're in... I feel so bad forgetting. Was it Portugal? I think you're in Portugal, right? Because when we are finishing the session, it's like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or something where Hidden's at. And I'm always shocked. I'm like, dude, how are you still up? Why are you playing D&D right now? This is insane. But he said that over there, folks are night owls. So I'm psyched that you're able to hang out with us. Let's see, what other questions are coming through? Grandfather Doom's in the chat. Good to see you. Hey, hi, Dad. He said, I love when players gel like that. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. But then Grandfather Doom also said, best part about any session is when players take the lemons they're given and make chocolate cake. As a DM, you have to be wide open to where your players will take you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Noble Knight asked, what are your favorite fantasy/sci-fi books? Oof. I feel silly, or I feel like I have to confess to the fact that I do not read books as often as I wish I did. I want to get into reading more. I just simply don't have time. Like, every day is jumping on here to do a stream, writing the next month's zine, getting a Patreon post ready, putting together a short to throw up on the socials to keep eyeballs coming to the church, try and get more people to indoctrinate into this hobby, right? And on top of that, I'm married and just all the responsibilities that come with that. It's so hard to find time to read. But if I had to pick, I kind of keep a few of them actually pretty close by. So Vermis, this is an awesome, awesome art book. It's not like it's sort of a story. It's kind of like, if you're a little older, you'll remember that they used to put out video game manuals. Maybe they still do this, I don't know. But they would put out like guides to video games, and it would tell you about like all the different monsters in a particular region, or where to find certain Pokemon, or how to solve a particular puzzle. And Vermis is a book that is written like a video game manual, a guide. So you're sort of following this character, this lonely knight, as he explores this area. And the art in this book is absolutely one of the biggest inspirations to my own style of, I am not an illustrator, I'm not a drawer, I don't paint, I'm not a graphic designer, I don't claim myself to be any of those things, but I would say, like, yes, I am an artist, right? I make all kinds of cool art in a collage style by taking a bunch of different images and smashing them together. And his work, his dark shadows and his emphasis on like faces and just the creepiness of it all. It's obviously very different than what I do, but there was still just something about it that just, I come back to this book all the time and read through it, and it's very, very inspiring. So I love that book. Then this won't come as a shock. Morkborg, obvious, or Merkborg, or however you pronounce it. Great book. I've only ever run like 1 or 2 sessions of Morkborg, and they were fun. I would not say it's necessarily the system that I'm in love with, but it's the vibe. I the crazy layouts are cool. I don't have a problem with them. There are some people who are like, they just can't stand it, and I totally get that. Like, there are certainly pages. What's a good example? A page where you're like, I don't know where the fuck I'm supposed to look to like figure anything out. That's kind of a good example of a page where you're like, like it's assaulting to the eyes. But clearly, this has had an influence on my own style with the church's color scheme and the dark vibes and the doomsday aesthetic and characters and monsters that are just horrific in all sorts of ways, and lots of tables. So that's a big inspiration to me. If I had to pick a book, oh man. I'm trying to even think of like the last fantasy or sci-fi book I read that really got me going. Probably, I mean, I read a lot of 40K lore. I don't read books. You can see I've got the Leviathan rulebook. I'm an edition behind. I haven't played a game in a long time, but I've got the core rulebook. I've got the Leviathan rulebook. I've got Codex Space Marines, Codex Grey Knight. So I would say Warhammer 40K lore is probably the biggest source of literature inspiration that I currently have right now. I take a lot from it. I just dig the whole vibe. I mean, Vecna being the mortal prophet of humanity, that is clearly a parallel to the corpse emperor, right? The god emperor of that setting. So that's the answer to that question, Noble Knight. Thanks for asking. What else we got? What other questions are popping off in the chat here? Yeah, Grandfather Doom said, I'm not exaggerating. Reading was not a favorite pastime for me. Yeah, what books did I even read? I read The Lord of the Rings in high school. I read The Road. If anybody's read The Road, that is probably the singular book that has stuck with me the longest. It's this book about a dad and a son. You don't ever learn their names, and they're just traveling west across a post-apocalyptic United States. But it's not like zombie post-apocalyptic. It's more like our world if it became apocalyptic and there was a nuclear war, just a winter of ash. And there's like cannibals and creepy stuff, but it just follows these two on this journey to try and reach the ocean in California because they think like maybe there's something there. They have no idea. And it is such a sad book. Oh my gosh. It was the first book that ever made me cry. I sobbed when I finished it. And I was like, I don't know, I was probably like 13 or 14 or something. It totally wrecked me. So, but that book hasn't necessarily had a lot of like influence on my own style, but just a really good book. Kyle has a question. Kyle Campoo said, did you come to D&D and TTRPGs on your own, or were you indoctrinated into the hobby from family members such as Grandfather Doom? Oh, good question. I remember my very first exposure to nerd stuff was absolutely from Grandfather Doom. That is who indoctrinated me into, like, I wouldn't be in this basement doing all of this if it weren't for him, because when I was little, he would let me and my brother play and break all of his, like, D&D pewter minis. I remember he had, like, I think it was an Umber Hulk. He had some sort of, like, big, cool, bluish looking beetle monster that had weird eyes and big mandibles. I think it was an Umber Hulk. Whatever. Either way, he let us play with all of those and break them all. And he got me into painting miniatures, which then got me into playing a lot of tabletop war games like Warhammer 40K or the Lord of the Rings skirmish game. That was one of the first games I played. And then through just my nerdiness in high school, my first ever exposure to D&D, as far as I can remember, was just at a friend's birthday party. He invited a bunch of guys over. Maybe this was in middle school, actually. Yeah, it was middle school. He invited a bunch of us over down into his basement, and his dad ran a big one-shot for us all. And this was probably, I guess that would have been 4th edition, I think. So I don't remember the rules. I remember rolling d20s. I remember fighting a Medusa. And I remember being one of the people there, or at least in my memory, I remember being like, this game is freaking sick, and these other bozos are not taking it seriously. Like, they need to focus up, right? We're fighting a monster. Like, let's get into this. Even back then, I remember taking the game pretty seriously. I think there might have been one other birthday game between then and when I went off to college, but I don't remember playing D&D with my family or my dad before I left, to be totally honest. Correct me if I'm wrong, Grandfather Doom. And then when I went off to college, in my close to my senior year, the fifth edition starter box Lost Mines of Phandelver had come out. Critical Role was pretty popular. Matt Colville was the man of the hour, and that is what really indoctrinated me. I'd say that's what got me into the hobby. Running sessions every week for some of my fellow. I was in a fraternity, if you can believe it. It was fraternity life at Utah State University, which is this like little, well, it's a pretty big town now, but it was a college town right up near, pretty close to the border with Idaho. It's not like fraternity life like you see in the movies or what you would kind of expect from it. Like, it was a dry house, a dry campus. We like really weren't able to, we couldn't throw parties that had alcohol there. It was really chill, but I would run it for a few of the guys in the house, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good time. I was not a good GM by any stretch of the word back then, compared to what I would say my skills have sort of developed to now. My whole approach to the game was so bad back then. It was like, I'm going to build this massive, huge world. I'm going to have a really specific story. I'm going to pit my enemies up against a BBG who's unbeatable. But unlike in the case with the King in Black, where I was like open to allowing my players to beat him, I was like, this dude's going to show up and just kick their asses. He's just going to totally wipe the floor with him, and then they're going to hate him. And that session that I remember doing that, I vividly remember one of the players getting so frustrated, like, this is stupid. And just kind of not knowing how to handle that, and you're like, no, it's not stupid. Now you just have to defeat him like that. I made all the mistakes you can make back then, but I've been hooked ever since. I've never really stopped. So I would give myself a little bit of credit. I sort of got myself into it a bit, but or at least I took the step to go buy the box and really like figure out how to run the game for myself. But absolutely, Grandfather Doom and Grandmother Doom nurtured and fostered just sort of my creative, nerdy side. So much love and thanks to the parents for getting me into. Look at me now. They're probably so proud. What's up, Colin Lee? Coming from the gym, new PR. Howdy. Hey, congrats, Colin. What was the PR? What were you working out? Me and Mother Doom had our workout today. We just have a little kind of a cycling fitness gym just down the road from us where we go, and sometimes it's like TRX workouts. Other times it's like lots of plyometrics, jumping around, lifting kettlebells and stuff. We had our workout today. It kicked our butts. Noble Knight asked, do you take inspiration from history to find things to add to your settings? Not really, to be totally honest. I can't think of a single like historical event that I really drew a lot of inspiration from. I mean, maybe like... No, not really. I'm sure subconsciously